Of all the cases I shared with my friend Hercule Poirot, the affair on the Danube remains the one I think of most often, and with the strangest mixture of feelings. Not because it was the most brilliant. Poirot would say it was among the simpler ones, though I dispute that. But because it happened in a landscape so beautiful that the ugliness within it seemed almost personal, as though the river itself had been offended by what men chose to do upon its back. It was September of 1935. Poirot had been invited to lecture at the University of Vienna on the psychology of the criminal mind. An invitation he accepted with the proviso that the lecture hall possess adequate heating and the hotel possess a competent barber. Both conditions being met, we spent a pleasant week in that city of coffee and contradictions, during which Poirot charmed the faculty, perplexed the students, and engaged in a protracted dispute with a waiter at the Hotel Sasha over the correct temperature at which sake torte should be served. It was my suggestion that we return to London by way of the Danube. A paddle steamer, the Kaiserin Elisabeth, made the journey from Vienna to Budapest in 2 days, stopping at small river towns along the way. The notion of gliding through the Austrian and Hungarian countryside, watching the castles and vineyards drift past, while someone else worried about the navigation, appealed to me enormously. Poirot resisted. He distrusted rivers on principle. They moved, he said, without permission. One could not be certain where one's belongings stood in relation to the shore, and the possibility of dampness was a permanent affront. But the weather was golden, that particular September gold that Central Europe produces as if apologizing for the winter to come. And the steamer, when we inspected it at the Reichsbrücke dock, proved to be a handsome vessel of the old sort. White hull, twin paddle wheels amidships, a promenade deck with wicker chairs, and a dining saloon paneled in walnut. The cabins were small but clean, the bedding pressed, the brass polished. Even Poirot conceded that order had been imposed upon the waters, however temporarily. We boarded on a Thursday afternoon. The dock was busy. Porters with luggage, vendors with newspapers, a brass band on the quay playing Strauss with more enthusiasm than accuracy. The Kaiserin Elisabeth carried perhaps 40 passengers, mostly Austrian and Hungarian, with a scattering of English, a French couple, and a solitary American whose voice carried across the promenade deck like a foghorn testing itself. I remember the moment we pulled away from the dock. The paddles churned. The water broke into a pattern of cream and green. The spires of Vienna receded with a slow grandeur, as if the city were taking a bow, and the river opened before us. Wide, grey-blue, edged with willows, and I felt that particular freedom that comes from being in motion without responsibility. Somewhere behind me, Poirot sneezed. The damp, he said, was already conspiring. We settled into our chairs on the promenade deck, and it was there, within the first hour, that I noticed the man. He sat alone at the far end of the deck, near the stern rail, in a chair slightly withdrawn from the others. He was perhaps 50, though it was difficult to tell, because his face had the quality of certain landscapes that appear ageless, shaped by forces deeper than weather. Dark hair, graying at the temples, a strong, square jaw, eyes that were either brown or black. The light made it hard to say, and that seemed to be looking at something just beyond the visible world. He wore a good suit, dark, continental in cut, and his hands rested on his knees in a posture of absolute stillness that I associated with soldiers, monks, and men who have learned to wait for things that may never come. He spoke to no one. No one spoke to him. The stewards brought him coffee, which he did not drink. The other passengers glanced at him and looked away, as people do when they sense a silence that is not empty but full. A silence with furniture in it and doors that do not open. "Poirot," I said, "the man at the stern. Do you see him?" Poirot, who had been watching the shoreline with the expression of a man evaluating real estate he has no intention of purchasing, shifted his gaze. "I see him. Odd fellow. He looks as if he's waiting for something." Everyone on a boat is waiting for something, Hastings. That is the nature of a journey. But this man, yes, he waits with a heaviness that is not merely patience. It is dread. Dread. How can you tell from here? The hands. They do not move. A man at rest allows his hands to fidget, to find occupation. This man holds his hands still by an act of will. He is controlling himself, mon ami, as one controls a horse that wishes to bolt. I looked again. The hands were indeed motionless, placed on the knees with a precision that now, pointed out, seemed more like restraint than repose. Shall we introduce ourselves? Not yet. Let us observe. The river is long, and there is time. We dined that evening in the Walnut Saloon. The food was better than I expected. River trout, asparagus, a tolerable Grüner Veltliner, and the company was mixed. At our table, we were joined by 3 people who would, in the days ahead, prove significant, though I did not know it then. The first was Mrs. Helena Gosse, an English woman of perhaps 45, traveling alone. She was handsome in a sharp, well-maintained way, with fair hair cut short in the modern fashion, and eyes that assessed everything with the speed and accuracy of an auctioneer. She wore good jewelry, not showy, but chosen with the precision of someone who understands that a single correct bracelet says more than a neck hung with diamonds. "Helena Gosse," she said, extending a hand that was firmer than many men's. "Recently widowed, traveling for recovery. My husband was in shipping, Gosse and Hartwell, perhaps you've heard of them." I had, vaguely. Baltic trade, coal and timber. The second was a young man named Stefan Mertens, perhaps 28, Austrian, with the eager manner of a puppy and the face of a poet. Large dark eyes, an unruly forelock, a mouth that smiled too easily and concealed, I suspected, a nature that felt too much. He introduced himself as a journalist, working on a series of articles about the Danube towns for a Vienna weekly. "The river is dying, commercially," he said with the passion of someone who had not yet learned to ration his enthusiasms. "The railways have taken everything. These steamers are ghosts of a world that is already gone. I want to record it before—" He made a gesture, fluid and sad, that encompassed the saloon, the river, the century. The third was Dr. Irina Szabo, a Hungarian woman of perhaps 35, dark, serious, with the angular beauty of a face that has been carved rather than softened by experience. She was a physician, she said, returning to Budapest from a conference in Vienna. She spoke English precisely, with the slight formality of one who learned it from books before she learned it from people. "You are the detective," she said to Poirot, without preamble or flattery. "I read your lecture in the university bulletin. You said that the criminal mind is not a deviation from the normal mind, but an exaggeration of it. I found that disturbing. The truth often is, madame." "Doctor," she corrected without heat. "Forgive me, Dr. Szabo." The stranger did not appear at dinner. His place, if he had one, remained empty. I mentioned this to the chief steward, a stout man named Gruber, who managed the dining saloon with the authority of a minor emperor. "The gentleman in cabin 9, Gruber said. "He requested a tray in his room. He does not wish to dine with the company." "His name?" Gruber consulted his list. "Herr Johann Linden, booked in Vienna, traveling to Budapest." "Linden," I repeated. "German?" "Austrian, I would say, by the registration. But he speaks very little. He gave his name and took his key. That is all." I reported this to Poirot. He received it with a small nod, as a man accepts a card at a game he has not yet decided to play. "Johann Linden," he said, "a name that sounds real but feels borrowed, like a coat taken from a rack in a hurry. You think it's false?" "I think a man who speaks very little and dines alone on a social vessel is a man who does not wish to be known, whether the name is false or the face is false or the purpose is false. That, Hastings, we shall discover." The night was warm. I went out on the promenade deck after dinner, and stood at the rail, watching the black ribbon of the river unwind beneath the stars. The paddle wheels churned their slow, steady rhythm, a heartbeat of wood and water. The banks were dark shapes, interrupted occasionally by the lit windows of a village or the white flash of a church tower caught by the moon. The stranger was there. At the stern, in his chair, though the hour was late and the other passengers had gone to their cabins, he sat in the same posture, hands on knees, eyes on the water. But now, in the darkness, there was something different about him. A tension, as if the dread Poirot had identified, had ripened into something closer to resolve. I debated speaking to him. The Englishman in me said it was not done. One does not approach a solitary stranger on a night deck and demand conversation. But the soldier in me, the part trained to recognize a man on the edge of something, overruled the Englishman. "Pleasant evening," I said, approaching. He turned his head. In the moonlight, his face was all angles and shadow. His eyes, I could see now that they were dark brown, almost black, held mine for a moment. Then he smiled. It was the saddest smile I've ever seen on a human face. Not self-pitying, not theatrical. Simply sad, the way a landscape is sad when the light leaves it. "Yes," he said. His voice was low, accented, careful. "The river is beautiful at night. It does not judge. Are you traveling for pleasure, Herr Linden?" The smile faded. "I'm traveling because I must. That is not the same thing." "No, I suppose it isn't." He looked at me, a long, evaluating look, and then said something that I did not understand at the time, but that I have never forgotten. "Captain Hastings, if a man carries a truth that will destroy everyone he loves, what should he do? Speak and ruin them, or stay silent and ruin himself?" Before I could respond, he stood, inclined his head in a small, courteous bow, and walked away along the deck, his footsteps merging with the sound of the water until both were gone. I told Poirot. He listened in that absolute stillness that means the gray cells have engaged, and the rest of the world has been politely asked to wait. "He knew your name," Poirot said. "Yes. I didn't introduce myself." "Then he knows who we are. He has recognized us, or he has made inquiries. A man who wishes to remain unknown does not learn the names of his fellow passengers without purpose." "You think he sought us out deliberately? Booked the same steamer?" "I think, Hastings, that Herr Johann Linden, if that is his name, is not on this boat by accident. He is here because we are here. And the question he asked you about a truth that destroys, that was not philosophy. It was a confession, searching for a confessor." The steamer stopped at Melk in the early morning, where the great abbey perched on its cliff like a wedding cake set upon a rock. Some passengers disembarked to visit. Poirot declined. The climb, he said, was an insult to civilization. I went, and when I returned 2 hours later, flushed with exercise and the residual awe that Baroque architecture imposes upon Protestant sensibilities, I found the boat in an uproar. Mrs. Helena Goss met me at the gangway, her face pale beneath the careful makeup. "Captain Hastings, something has happened. The man in cabin 9, the quiet one, Linden, he's gone. His cabin is empty. His bed was not slept in. The steward says he wasn't at breakfast. They've searched the boat." I found Poirot on the promenade deck, standing at the stern rail, the precise spot where Linden had sat. He was looking at the water. "Overboard?" I said. "So it would appear. Captain Horvath has ordered a search of the vessel, which has been thorough and fruitless. Herr Linden is not on board. His cabin contains a suitcase, unpacked, and a coat hanging on the door. His wallet and passport are on the nightstand. A man who jumps doesn't leave his passport behind. A man who jumps in despair might, but a man who is thrown..." Poirot's moustache performed its most economical gesture. "He takes nothing because he is given no choice. Captain Horvath was a grizzled riverman of 60, whose face had been weathered by 30 years of Danube currents into something resembling the limestone cliffs we passed. He received Poirot in his cabin with the wary respect of a professional dealing with another. "The river police at Melk have been notified," he said. "They will search the banks downstream. If the man fell or jumped between Vienna and Melk, a stretch of 60 kilometers, the body may surface within hours, or it may not surface for days. The Danube keeps her dead when she chooses." "When was Herr Linden last seen?" "The night steward reports that he saw a passenger on the promenade deck at approximately midnight. He could not identify the person with certainty, but the description matches. Dark suit, sitting at the stern." "And after midnight?" "No sighting. The boat was underway all night. We passed through the Wachau Valley in darkness. The deck would have been unlit and unobserved between 1 and 5 in the morning." "A window of 4 hours," Poirot said, "in which a man might fall, jump, or be helped." "You suspect foul play, Monsieur Poirot." "I suspect everything until I am persuaded of something. May I see the cabin?" Cabin 9 was small, tidy, and almost empty. The suitcase stood open on the luggage rack. It contained 2 shirts, undergarments, a razor, and a book. A German edition of Marcus Aurelius, well thumbed with passages marked in pencil. The coat on the door was dark wool, continental, with a tailor's label from a shop in Graz. The wallet held Austrian shillings, a business card for a firm called Linden & Wald, Import-Export, Graz, and nothing else. No photographs, no letters, no personal papers. The passport was Austrian. Johann Friedrich Linden, born 1883, Graz. The photograph showed the face I'd seen on the deck. Strong, square, unsmiling. Poirot examined everything with his usual meticulousness, but it was the book that held him longest. He turned the pages slowly, reading the marked passages. "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane," he read aloud. "And here, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He closed the book. "A man who reads Marcus Aurelius with a pencil is a man in conversation with himself. He is seeking answers. He is troubled. He told me as much last night. The question about truth and destruction? Yes. And now he is gone, overboard, into the river, between midnight and dawn, leaving behind his passport, his wallet, his coat, and his philosopher." Poirot set down the book and looked at me. "This is not a man who jumped, Hastings. A suicide chooses his moment with care. He does not sit on the deck until midnight, asking strangers for moral guidance, and then fling himself into the water on impulse. There is no note. There is no arrangement of affairs. No letter to a loved one. No instructions for the disposal of property. And the coat." He touched it. "A man does not remove his coat before drowning voluntarily. The instinct is to keep it on. One does not prepare for the water as one prepares for bed." Then he was pushed. Oh Lord. The stern deck at 1 in the morning. The water black and swift. A conversation that becomes a confrontation. A push, a stumble, the rail. It is barely 3 feet high. A man unprepared would go over easily. The splash and the noise of the paddle wheels would be heard by no one. But who? And why? That is what we must determine before we reach Budapest. We have 30 hours. The river, Hastings, is both our prison and our clock. The steamer stopped briefly at Dürnstein, where Richard the Lionheart had been imprisoned 8 centuries ago, and where the apricot orchards now blazed with autumn color. I went ashore again, but this time not for pleasure. Poirot had given me an errand. Speak to the passengers, all of them. Discover who knew Herr Linden, who spoke to him, who saw him after midnight. Be charming, Hastings. It is your greatest talent, after loyalty and a slight excess of optimism. I was charming. I spoke to the American, a Mr. Theodore Crabb from Ohio, whose volume had not diminished with the morning, who said he had noticed Lyndon at dinner. Queer duck, sitting alone like that, gave me the creeps, but had not spoken to him. I spoke to the French couple, the Beaumonts, who were absorbed in each other to the exclusion of all other passengers, and would not have noticed a man overboard if he had waved while sinking. I spoke to a retired Austrian colonel who had slept from 9 until 7 and heard nothing. The productive conversations were 3. Stefan Mertens, the young journalist, told me he had spoken to Lyndon. He was almost vibrating with the significance of it. Last evening, before dinner, I approached him on the deck. I thought he might be interesting. A solitary man, clearly educated, clearly troubled. I asked if he was traveling for the articles, if he had a connection to the river. He said. Mertens paused, choosing his words with the care of a man who writes for a living. He said, "I have a connection to many things, young man, and all of them are breaking." Then he asked me to leave him alone. Nothing else? One thing. He asked if I knew who else was on the boat. I said I didn't understand. He said, "Never mind. I will find out for myself." It was odd, as if he were looking for someone specific. Mrs. Helena Goss was more composed but no less informative. I found her on the promenade deck, a novel in her lap, sunglasses hiding whatever her eyes might have revealed. "I saw him after dinner," she said, "about 10:30. He was standing at the stern rail. I was walking. I walk after dinner. It helps me sleep. He saw me and..." She hesitated. He stared at me. Quite rudely, actually, as if he recognized me, or thought he did. "Do you know him?" "I have never seen him before in my life." She said this with the firmness of a woman accustomed to being taken at her word. But there was something in the way he looked at me. Not admiration, not curiosity, something harder, as if he were angry. Angry at you, at something I represented. I can't explain it better than that. Dr. Irina Sabo was the most direct. She received me in her cabin, which she had transformed with medical efficiency into a small, orderly workspace. Papers on the desk, journals stacked, a pen lying at right angles to a notepad. "I did not speak to him," she said, "but I observed him. I am trained to observe." The man was under severe psychological distress. His posture, his refusal of food, the fixed gaze, these are markers. He was not merely sad, Captain Hastings. He was in a state of acute moral crisis. Moral crisis? A person confronting a decision that will cause harm regardless of the choice. The paralysis is characteristic. He could neither act nor refrain from acting. Such states, in my experience, do not resolve through drowning. They resolve through confession. That's what Poirot said. Then Monsieur Poirot and I are in agreement. The man did not jump. He was stopped. I brought all of this to Poirot, who had spent the afternoon in the dining saloon with Captain Horvath's passenger manifest and a pot of coffee. The manifest told him little. Names, nationalities, cabin numbers. But one detail had caught his eye. "Mrs. Helena Goss," he said. "Cabin 7. Next to cabin 9, the shared wall. Adjacent to Lyndon's cabin." Precisely. And she tells you that Lyndon stared at her with anger. Not recognition, anger. As though she represented something he despised. She said she'd never seen him. She said she had never seen him before in her life. A very specific phrase, Hastings. It does not say she does not know who he is. It says she has not seen his face. A person can know of someone, know their name, their business, their significance, without ever having met them. You think she's connected to Lyndon? I think the river has brought together people who are already connected, and that the connection is the thing Johann Lyndon wished to confess, and the thing someone was determined he should never speak. But the passport says Lyndon and Wald, import-export, Graz, and Mrs. Goss's husband was in shipping, Goss and Hartwell, different worlds. are they? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Shipping and import-export. One carries goods, the other moves them. They are not different worlds, Hastings. They are two sides of the same coin. The steamer stopped at Bratislava as the sun was setting. The city sat on the river like a faded dowager, its castle lit from below, its spires catching the last light. We did not disembark. Poirot had other business. He asked Captain Horvath for the use of the ship's wireless. A telegram was sent to London, to Inspector Japp, and another to the police in Graz. We waited. While we waited, Poirot spoke to the staff. Not the officers, the stewards, the kitchen crew, the night watchmen, the invisible people. He had a gift for making the invisible feel seen, and in return they gave him what the visible would not. The truth. The night steward, a young Hungarian named Paul, confirmed that he had seen a passenger on the stern deck at midnight. But he added something that had not been in his initial report. There were two people, he said, not one. The gentleman in the dark suit, yes, and another person, standing near the rail, closer to the paddle housing. I could not see clearly. The deck lamps were off for the night passage, but there were two shapes. Man or woman, this second person. I cannot say. They wore a coat with a collar raised. Tall, I think. Taller than the seated gentleman. And when you passed again? 20 minutes later. Both were gone. The kitchen boy, a lad of 16 who spoke only Hungarian and a few words of German, provided another fragment. He had been disposing of rubbish at approximately 1 in the morning through the galley door, which opened onto a lower deck near the waterline. He had heard a sound. "Kshobanaz," he said. A splash. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of sound a large object makes when it enters the water without violence. Lowered, perhaps, rather than thrown. Poirot's face, when he heard this, went very still. Lowered, he said to me. Not thrown, not jumped. Lowered into the water. A body that falls from the promenade deck would hit the water with force. A crash, not a sobanaz. But a body lowered from the lower deck, from the galley entrance where the water line is only a few feet below. That body would enter the water gently. Someone carried him down from the promenade deck, took him through the interior of the boat to the galley level, and eased him into the river. While the kitchen boy, by fortune, heard the moment of entry. That means the murder happened on the promenade deck. The push, the blow, whatever it was. And then the body was moved. That takes strength, and time, and knowledge of the boat's layout. Not a tourist's knowledge, a working knowledge. Where the galley door opens, how to reach it from the upper deck without passing through the main saloon, where the night steward patrols, and when. A crew member, or someone who has made this journey before. The wireless reply from Japp arrived at 9 that evening. Poirot read it, then handed it to me. Linden and Wald Graz, import-export firm, dissolved 1933. Principal Johann Linden, former partner Karl Goss, deceased 1934. Cause heart failure. Widow Helena Goss, née Hartwell, currently traveling continent. Goss and Hartwell, shipping under investigation, customs fraud. 1931, case dropped, insufficient evidence. Linden believed key witness, Japp. I read it twice. The pieces rearranged themselves in my mind like the colored fragments of a kaleidoscope falling into a new pattern. Karl Goss, I said, Linden's former business partner, Helena Goss's husband, dead of heart failure last year. And Goss and Hartwell, the shipping firm, investigated for customs fraud. The case dropped because there was insufficient evidence, but Linden was believed to be the key witness, the man who could provide the evidence that would reopen the case. So Linden knew something about the fraud. He was the partner who could testify. And Karl Goss died before the case could proceed. Heart failure, Poirot said softly. A convenient death. The partner who knows too much dies of natural causes, and the investigation dies with him. And now Linden, the other partner, the potential witness, disappears overboard on a Danube steamer, while Helena Goss, the widow, is aboard the same vessel. The coincidence, Hastings, is not a coincidence. It is a design. We passed Esztergom in darkness, its basilica a vast pale dome against the stars. The river narrowed here, the banks drawing closer, the current quickening. I felt the change in the boat's motion, a slight urgency, as though the Kaiserin Elizabeth sensed the proximity of its destination and wished to arrive. Poirot had not gone to bed. He sat in the saloon, which was empty now except for a steward polishing glasses and the distant sound of the engine. His coffee had gone cold. His eyes were open but turned inward, as they were when the grey cells were performing their most delicate operations. At 11 o'clock, he rose. "I will speak to Mrs. Goss," he said. "Tonight, now. At this hour. Murder does not keep office hours, Hastings, and the woman is awake." I passed her cabin. The light was on. The light of a person who cannot sleep because the river carries a body, and the body carries a secret, and the secret is hers. We knocked. Helena Goss opened the door in a silk dressing gown, her face scrubbed of makeup, and in that unguarded state she looked both younger and more dangerous. Her eyes, without the sunglasses, were grey, the colour of the river on an overcast morning. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, I wondered when you would come." She let us in. The cabin was larger than Linden's, first class, with a sitting area and a view of the water. She sat in a chair, crossed her legs, and regarded Poirot with the composure of a woman who has been preparing for this conversation longer than we had. "You know who Johann Linden was?" Poirot said. "Yes. He was your late husband's business partner." "Former partner. They dissolved the firm in '33. Carl wanted to go legitimate. The shipping side, Goss and Hartwell. Johann disagreed. He thought the old ways were more profitable. The old ways being customs fraud." Her expression did not change. "I'm not going to incriminate my dead husband, Monsieur Poirot." "Your dead husband is beyond incrimination. I'm interested in the living." She was silent for a moment. Then she reached for a cigarette, lit it with steady hands, and spoke through the smoke. Johann Linden was a cheat, a manipulator, and a coward. He and Carl built the import business together, legitimate on the surface, rotten underneath. Forged customs declarations, undervalued shipments, phantom cargo. It was Johann's system, Johann's genius. Carl went along because Carl was weak and because Johann made it seem like a game. Until the investigation. The customs authority opened a case in '31. Johann panicked. He wanted to flee to South America, of all places. Carl refused. He wanted to face it. He believed they could bluff their way through, and they nearly did. The case was dropped for lack of evidence. Because Linden, the key witness, did not testify. He refused. He told the investigators he knew nothing. Without his testimony, they had no case. And then Carl died. Heart failure. He was 51. He'd been drinking heavily since the investigation. The stress. She drew on the cigarette. The doctor said it was natural. But you did not believe it. For the first time, something cracked in her composure. A small thing, a tremor at the corner of her mouth, quickly suppressed. Johann visited Carl the week before he died. I came home and found them in the study. Carl was white. Johann was calm. That terrible calm he had, like a frozen lake. He said they were discussing old business. Carl said nothing. He wouldn't look at me. And a week later, Carl was dead. And Johann had disappeared, back to Graz, back into his shadows. I heard nothing from him for over a year, until this boat. She crushed the cigarette. I did not know he was aboard, I swear it. When I saw him, that first evening on the deck, I nearly screamed. He looked at me as if I were the ghost, not him. He stared at you with anger, you told Captain Hastings. Not anger at me, anger at himself. I saw it in his face. He was tormented. He wanted to speak, to confess, to tell me what really happened to Carl. I could see it writhing behind his eyes like something trapped. And you? Did you wish to hear this confession? She met Poirot's gaze. Her grey eyes were steady, but something moved behind them. Deep, dark, powerful. I wished never to see him again. I wished him drowned. I wished him dead. She lifted her chin. And now he is. And you are here to ask if I made my wish come true. Did you, madame? No. You were in the adjacent cabin. You could have gone to the deck at midnight. You could have spoken to him. You could have. I could have. I did not. I was in this cabin all night. I locked the door. I took a sleeping tablet. I slept. And there is no one to confirm this. No, there is no one to confirm anything on a boat at night. That is the beauty and the horror of it. Poirot studied her for a long, silent moment. Then he inclined his head. Thank you, Madame Gosse. You have been more honest than most. I have been exactly as honest as I choose to be, Monsieur Poirot, which is more than Johann Linden ever was. We left her cabin. In the corridor, Poirot paused. She is telling the truth, he said. Most of it. The hatred is real. The sleeping tablet is real. But there is something she has not told us. Something about Carl's death that she suspects but cannot prove. That Linden killed him? That someone did. And that the method, the invisible method, the death that looks natural, is the same method that has now been used again. The Kaiserin Elizabeth arrived in Budapest at noon the following day. The city rose from the river in two halves, Buda on the hills, Pest on the plain, joined by bridges that arched over the water like stone promises. The Parliament building, impossibly ornate, stood on the eastern bank like a cathedral that had been told it was a government office and refused to believe it. We should have disembarked. We should have gone to our hotel, reported to the police, handed the matter to the Hungarian authorities. But Poirot did not move from the saloon. He sat with his coffee, his eyes closed, his fingers pressed together, and thought. The reply from the Graz police had arrived during the night. It confirmed what Poirot suspected. Johann Linden had been under renewed investigation by the Austrian Customs Authority. New evidence had emerged. Documents, accounts, a paper trail that connected the old fraud to a network far larger than anyone had imagined. Linden had been approached by investigators 3 weeks ago. He had agreed to cooperate. He had agreed to testify, and then he had boarded a steamer to Budapest and vanished. Someone knew, Poirot said, opening his eyes. Someone knew that Linden was about to talk. Someone who could not allow the testimony to be given, because the testimony would expose not just the old fraud, but a living person who profited from it and who continues to profit. Helena Gosse. She is a possibility. The shipping firm survives. If Linden's testimony connected the fraud to Gosse and Hartwell's current operations, she would lose everything. But consider also Hastings, our young journalist. Stefan Mertens, who writes for a Vienna weekly, who is, by his own admission, researching the Danube towns, who approached Linden on the deck and was told to leave. What connection could Mertens have? That is what troubles me. He has no obvious connection, and in a case where every other person has a connection, the one who does not is the one who deserves the closest attention. Poirot sent me to make one final inquiry. I went to the shipping office on the Budapest quay and asked a question that had been forming in my mind since the Graz telegram. The answer confirmed it. The Kaiserin Elizabeth was operated by a subsidiary of Gosse and Hartwell Shipping. Helena Gosse's company owned the boat. Poirot received this information with a nod that was almost imperceptible. The nod of a man whose hypothesis has been confirmed and who takes no pleasure in it. She knew the layout of the boat, I said. She knew the galley door, the night steward's schedule, The lower deck. She knows everything about this vessel because it belongs to her. Then she did it. She lured Lyndon to the deck, killed him, and disposed of the body through the galley entrance. Perhaps. But consider the physical difficulty. Lyndon was a large man. Mrs. Goss, though formidable, is not a powerful woman. To render him unconscious, or dead only to be on the promenade deck, carry him down the interior stairs, through the galley corridor, and lower him through the galley door into the water. This requires either great strength or an accomplice. The crew. Someone on the crew could have helped. She owns the company. She could command loyalty or buy it. Yes, but there is another possibility that we have not explored. A simpler one. He rose. Come, Hastings. There is one more conversation to be had. We found Dr. Irina Sabo on the promenade deck, watching Budapest assemble itself on the horizon. She stood at the rail with the stillness of someone returning to a place they have not decided whether they love or fear. Dr. Sabo, Poirot said, you told Captain Hastings that Herr Lyndon was in a state of acute moral crisis. You observed this from his behavior. I admire your diagnostic skill, but I wonder, was the observation made from behavior alone, or did you speak to him privately? She turned from the rail. Her face was composed, but something in her eyes had shifted. A deepening, a gravity that had not been there before. I spoke to him, she said. Last night, after dinner. He came to me. He came to you. He knew I was a physician. He asked if I could prescribe him something to calm his nerves, he said. I told him I did not carry my dispensary on holiday. He smiled at that, and then he told me something. What did he tell you? He said, I have done something that I must undo, and the undoing will destroy a woman who has already suffered enough. He said, the testimony I'm about to give will prove that her husband was murdered, and it will prove that I stood by and allowed it to happen. The words fell like stones into the river of our understanding. Karl Goss was murdered, Poirot said. Lyndon knew it. He witnessed it, or he knew the details, and his testimony would prove it. He did not name the murderer, Dr. Sabo said, but he was deeply afraid. He said, his exact words, the person who killed Karl is on this boat. I know it now. I saw the face at dinner, and I knew. The face at dinner, one of the passengers. He would not say more. He asked me to remember what he had told me, in case something happened. I thought he was being dramatic. I'm a doctor, Monsieur Poirot. I deal in symptoms, not premonitions. Her voice roughened. I should have taken him more seriously. The person who killed Karl Goss is on this boat, Poirot repeated. Lyndon saw their face. He recognized them, and by morning, he was dead. He turned to me. His expression had changed. The contemplative uncertainty was gone, replaced by the focused clarity that meant the picture had assembled itself in his mind and was now merely waiting to be described. Hastings, I know who killed Johann Lyndon, and I know who killed Karl Goss, and I know why, but I need one thing before I speak. What? The passenger list from the Kaiserin Elizabeth's last voyage, the voyage before this one. Captain Horvath will have it. Horvath, summoned, produced the list with the resigned efficiency of a man who has learned that Poirot's requests are not optional. Poirot scanned it. His finger stopped. There, he said. Cabin 12. Last voyage. 3 weeks ago. The name, S. Mertens. Stefan Mertens had been on the boat before. 3 weeks ago, the same week Lyndon was approached by investigators. The same week Lyndon agreed to testify. Mertens is not a journalist, Poirot said. He is a watcher. He was placed on this boat to monitor Lyndon, to report on his movements, his contacts, his state of mind. And when Lyndon's determination to testify became clear, Mertens was given a different instruction. By whom? By the person who hired him. The person who could not afford for Lyndon's testimony to reach the Austrian courts. The person who owns this shipping company, who knows this boat, who has the resources to employ a young man as a spy and, when necessary, as something worse. Helena Goss. Helena Goss, who knew that Carl was murdered, who suspected it from the moment she saw Johann and Carl together in the study, who has spent 2 years building her case, not for justice, but for control. Carl's death freed her. The insurance, the company, the assets, all came to her. But if Linden testified that Carl was murdered, the insurance would be voided. The company would be investigated. Everything she had gained would be stripped away. So she had Linden killed, using Mertens. Mertens is young, strong, and knows the boat. He spoke to Linden on the deck, befriending him, assessing him. Then, at the appointed hour, he went to the stern. The night steward saw 2 figures. Mertens struck Linden, or drugged him. I favor the latter, given the gentleness of the entry into the water, and carried the body, or guided the drugged man, down the interior stairs to the galley door. There, at the waterline, he eased Linden into the Danube. The kitchen boy heard the splash. And Mrs. Goss was in her cabin, with her sleeping tablet, with her locked door. She did not do the deed. She merely arranged for it to be done. The hands that pushed were Mertens's. The will that directed them was her. The Hungarian police were summoned. Inspector Varga, a lean man with a cigarette permanently attached to his lower lip and the tired eyes of someone who had seen the Danube's secrets before, listened to Poirot's account with the attentiveness of a professional who recognized brilliance even when it arrived in an inconvenient package. They arrested Stefan Mertens in his cabin. He had been packing. Among his belongings, they found a small glass vial, empty, that had contained chloral hydrate. A sedative. Administered in a drink, it would render a man unconscious within minutes. Mertens did not confess. He said nothing. Sitting in his cabin with the look of a man who has been taught that silence is a shield and who does not yet understand that it is also a cell. But his previous voyage on the Kaiserin Elizabeth was on record. His connection to Mrs. Goss's company was traceable through employment records that Japp, in London, was already compiling. And the vial spoke for itself. Helena Goss was more composed. She received the police in her cabin with the dignity of a woman accustomed to boardrooms and courtrooms alike. She denied everything. She denied knowing Mertens. She denied arranging Linden's death. She denied any knowledge of Carl's murder. "My husband died of heart failure," she said. The doctor confirmed it. "There is no evidence to the contrary." "There will be," Poirot said. When Johann Linden's testimony, which he gave to Dr. Sabo on this boat, in my hearing, and which I have recorded in detail, is presented to the Austrian investigators, they will reopen Carl Goss's case. The autopsy will be re-examined. The prescriptions will be checked. The pattern of a man who was slowly poisoned over weeks. The same method, madame, that is used by those who understand medicine or who employ those who do, will emerge. You have no proof. I have a pattern. I have a witness, Dr. Sabo, to Linden's statement that Carl was murdered. I have a young man in custody with chloral hydrate in his luggage and your company's records in his past. I have the passenger manifest showing his previous reconnaissance voyage. And I have the river, madame, which will, I believe, return Johann Linden's body in due course. When it does, the chloral hydrate in his system will tell the story his mouth no longer can. She looked at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Helena Goss did something I did not expect. She smiled. Not the terrible smile of a villain unmasked. That is the stuff of penny dreadfuls, not real life. But the weary, almost rueful smile of a woman who has played a long game and lost, and who recognizes, with something approaching respect, the quality of the opponent who beat her. "Carl would have destroyed me," she said quietly. "If he had lived, if the investigation had continued, if Johann had testified, I would have lost everything, the company, The house, the name I built from the ashes of a marriage to a weak, dishonest man. So you ensured Carl did not live. Carl was already dying. The drinking, the fear, the guilt, his body was failing. I merely accelerated the process. And Linden? Johann was a loose end. Loose ends must be trimmed. She said it with the flatness of a businesswoman describing a necessary expense. And in that flatness, that absence of passion, I heard something more frightening than rage or hatred. The cold, mechanical logic of a mind that has decided human life is a line item in a ledger, to be balanced or written off as the accounts require. Inspector Varga took her into custody. She went without resistance, her posture perfect, her pearls catching the light from the cabin window, which framed the Danube as it flowed past Budapest, indifferent, as rivers are, to the dramas enacted upon their backs. Mertens, confronted with the evidence, the vial, the manifest, the employment records, broke within the hour. He was not, I think, a wicked man. He was a young man who had been offered money by a woman he admired, asked to do a thing he did not fully understand, and found himself, step by step, in a darkness from which there was no return. His confession was delivered in a voice barely above a whisper, and it contained a sentence I have not forgotten. She said it would be like a kindness. She said he wanted to die. She said the river would take care of it. The river, the eternal accomplice, the silent partner in a crime committed on its surface and buried in its depths. Johann Linden's body was recovered 6 days later near the town of Parks, caught in the roots of a fallen willow. The autopsy confirmed chloral hydrate in his bloodstream. The cause of death was drowning, not by violence, not by choice, but by the deliberate rendering of a man unconscious and the placing of his body into water that would do what hands had not. A gentle murder, an almost merciful one if murder can ever be called that. The Austrian authorities reopened Karl Goss's case. The exhumation revealed traces of arsenic, slow, cumulative, administered over months in the man's whiskey. The method of a patient killer. The method of a wife who poured a drink each evening and watched her husband die by inches, and who told the world it was his own weakness that killed him. Helena Goss stood trial in Vienna the following spring. She was convicted of 2 murders, Karl's and Linden's, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Mertens received a lesser sentence for his role as an accomplice. He served 8 years and was released. I do not know what became of him. Poirot and I left Budapest by train. He had endured enough water for one lifetime, he said. And as the Hungarian plane unrolled outside our carriage window, flat and golden and endless, he spoke of the case with the reflective calm he sometimes showed when a thing was finished and the cost of it could be counted. The stranger on the Danube, he said, Johann Linden, a man who carried a truth that would have destroyed the woman who destroyed his partner. He came to confess, not to a priest, not to a policeman, but to a detective. He boarded the same boat as Hercule Poirot because he wanted to be heard. And he was heard by Dr. Sabo. His words survived. His words survived, but he did not. Poirot looked out the window. The Danube was visible in the distance, a silver thread stitching together the fields. The question he asked you, Hastings, on the deck that first evening. If a man carries a truth that will destroy everyone he loves, what should he do? He already knew the answer. He had chosen to speak. He had chosen the truth, whatever it cost. But the cost was higher than he imagined, because the person he was about to expose had already decided that silence was worth a man's life. Helena Goss. Helena Goss, who built an empire on the death of her husband, and who would not allow a stranger with a conscience to bring it down. We were quiet for a time. The train rocked gently. The landscape changed. Hills now, forests, the first suggestion of the Alps. The river, I said at last. You said at the beginning that you distrusted rivers, that they move without permission. I did. And now after all this? Poirot considered. I still distrust them, he said, but I respect them also. The river carried a body, yes, but it also carried a truth. It carried Johann Linden's words to Dr. Sabo and Dr. Sabo's words to me, and my words to Inspector Varga, and so the chain continued until justice, imperfect, incomplete as justice always is, it was done. He touched his mustache, a gesture of finality. The river does not judge, Linden told you. Perhaps he was right, but it remembers, Hastings. It remembers everything that passes over it, and in the end, what it remembers, it returns. The train carried us westward, toward home, toward London, toward the next case and the one after that. Behind us, the Danube flowed on, gray and blue and silver, winding through countries and centuries, patient and ancient and wide. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had carried kings and refugees, soldiers and saints and strangers with secrets. It would carry more. It always does. And somewhere beneath its surface, in the silt and the shadows and the slow forgetting of deep water, the memory of Johann Linden settled and remained. A stranger who came to confess, who was silenced before he could speak, and whose truth in the end spoke for him.